Hey guys, it's iDavis here and welcome back. In this Rise of Cultures video, we are going to take a look at China culture and my experiences with it after completing the era of early Rome. I have just finished this era a couple of days ago, so my China culture now contains all the buildings and upgrades that I could unlock, so it's time to make some review of all the goods that you can produce here, some of my strategies that I discovered while going through this culture, and I will also share with you some information on how does this culture and its production system work. Before we begin, I will use some of the aspects of this culture to compare it with the previous Egypt, for which I have already created its own video, so if you are just about to enter the Egypt culture, make sure to watch that one as well. The link should be now visible on the screen as well as in the description below. Talking about differences between China and Egypt culture, the first difference to spot is that there is no cultural system in China. In your capital city, you are placing cultural buildings between houses and workshops to make your workers happy. In Egypt, you are irrigating the ground by the water, but in China, there is no cultural system at all, and all the puzzle that you have to solve is to arrange the buildings so that you can actually push all of them in the available space, which is much more difficult than anywhere else before, as the space in China is definitely a more limiting factor than in Egypt or in the capital city. Many of the buildings are also very huge, maybe except the small homes, and you usually need even more than one expansion for one to place on the playfield. As soon as you unlock the China culture, there is just this little space available at the beginning, but of course, looks can be deceiving. The playfield can be expanded by placing the expansions, which you can win by fighting in world map provinces, and as the space is so limiting factor this time, completing regions and making progress on the world map should get a high priority from you during the whole research of early Rome. I found it to be worth unlocking the military technologies and preparing the military buildings for their newest upgrades as soon as possible. The homes and the workers system works exactly like in Egypt, so you are building your houses for the Chinese workers, and these are separate from your capital city. The first new interesting mechanics in China comes together with the first production building that you get into, and that's the mote glade and its production of mote cocoons. The way you get this building is by unlocking expansions and taking your path to one of these buildings on the playfield. A couple of China resources is then needed for its activation. There is no possibility to either move or sell these buildings, so it's just another aspect that makes China to be a real space puzzle, but I find it kind of cool. Again, there is no cultural system, so it's definitely nice to see the puzzle aspect in some other place. From my experiences with the early Rome era, it's not necessary to be finding the shortest paths from one glade to another. The rewards from the world map will provide you with enough expansions to place, so that you will be able to unlock all the available glades for completing the questline, even without the need of buying premium expansions. Now let's move on to the next production, which is rice. And that's where China starts to be a little bit more demanding. While the available mote glades very nicely cover all the costs you get to face, the rice becomes a little bit more limiting factor, and it made me quickly realize that I need to arrange my settlement so that I can squeeze as many rice farms as possible. The same as Egypt culture, I found 2 hours productions in all the production buildings pretty much sufficient, so I guess there is no need to run on 10-minute ones. Even with 2-hour productions, my culture went very nicely together with my research. By unlocking sericulture technology, you get access to the thread processor, which can produce silk threads, and these are then needed for the production of silk, in the silk workshops, which is the final resource in China. Now, to make a recap of the whole production system in China that I mentioned so far, you begin with the primary buildings such as homes, which produce wuzu, rice farms for producing rice, and mote glades, which you can unlock by expanding the playfield. The production continues with silk threads in the thread processor, requiring wuzu, rice and cocoons, and finishing with a silk workshop for producing silk, which require wuzu, rice and silk threads altogether. Some of the building upgrades in China also require these resources, but the good thing is that only houses and rice farms can be upgraded, other than these cannot be upgraded from the level 1 at any point in the research. One more feature that China brings, similarly to what Egypt brought, is the bridge system. At some point after you unlock more space in your playfield, you will have to prepare the bridge in order to be able to keep expanding your settlement, as the playfield is divided into several parts separated by the river. Every bridge consists of several stages to be completed, and each requires specific China resources and also a few hours to wait until the construction is finished. After going through all of this is my layout at the end of the early Rome era. There is zero free space between the buildings in my first part of the playfield. Most of the buildings that I placed are just those that the questline asked me to build. I found it pretty much sufficient for all the needs and requirements, so I wasn't forced to build anything above that. Now, if I had to conclude my impressions from this culture, as with Egypt, the difficulty wasn't any outstanding from the research of the capital city. Most of the time it didn't require any sort of unique attention, so that I would need to focus on this culture more than on my capital city. Just until the end of era, where the silk requirements started growing very fast. That was the point where I realized that it was really worth placing the second silk workshop as soon as I unlocked it. So I fortunately created a stack of silk in advance, so that it wasn't limiting me in the final part of the research. The second thread processor is also unlocked with a nice advance of silk workshop, so the silk threads wasn't any sort of problem once my production of the final silk resource has increased. I'm definitely looking forward to what the Roman Empire has to bring to this culture. There seems to be some new production building to be found between the expansions to unlock, which I assume will trigger a new chain of resources to produce. And with that being said, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. What do you think about this culture? How would you compare this culture to Egypt? Do you think it's more interesting, or do you prefer the cultural system such as water irrigation in Egypt more? Let me know in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, then give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest videos from Rise of Cultures and Elvenar. And thank you for watching, and see you next time.